We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Braith. It is the three Amigos, and it is the perfect way, as always, to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend. Manchester City in town tomorrow, 5:30 kickoff, live on TNT. We'll be looking ahead to that a little bit later on. But as always, on the Amigos, a chance for you to sit back, ask a few questions, and let me, George, Steve, and Mitch chew the fat on some fairly important issues which have been discussed over the course of the last 48 hours. First of all, by Darren Eales in a released press conference, if you like, a released press statement over 8.5 minutes on Newcastle's official channels. And then Eddie Howe's press conference today, which further, I guess, cemented the fact that Newcastle would be doing very little business, we would imagine, in this transfer window at all. FFP has been a regular mention in Eddie's press conferences, and certainly hammering the point home over the last 24 hours have Darren and Eddie. So find out what the lads think of it. John Askew came in early with this. He says, even and all, is enough enough? Most mags have a high regard for the work done by Rafa Benitez while he was at Newcastle. One theme he constantly referred to when interviewed was the potential of our club. This was because at the time, Mike was not exactly driving us forward off the pitch or on it for that matter. It is incredible that now we've got owners who clearly want to achieve that potential. Rules around FFP make this impossible. Surely FFP is legally suspect considering laws linked to restrictive practice, protectionism and anti-competition. Is it time for the club or clubs to make a legal challenge which might level the playing field? Great question, John. First up is George, as always. George, first of all, what have you made of the first, well, those two media releases by the club, the press conference today by Eddie, Darren Eales yesterday, and then I guess from John's perspective, he's asking if there's a chance of a legal challenge with regards to FFP, because it's certainly stopping us in our tracks, and is probably going to affect this transfer window, one would imagine, not just for Newcastle but for everybody.
Well, the two press conferences, frankly, are two senior people at Newcastle United playing down supporters' expectations, aren't they? I mean, everybody was expecting an awful lot this window, and there's two people saying, well, head on, don't get your hopes up high. There's not a lot going to happen. And at the root of both of them is FFP. Now, like in a lump, that's where we are, and that's where they knew they were going to be when they took over the club and the club started to move forward. But that doesn't alter the fact that it's. I mean, you could almost hear Eales putting the brakes on, couldn't you? He was slowing things down so much, and Eddie Howe followed him fairly quickly afterwards with the same story. And I can understand the position because people were expecting, including me, that something might happen in this window, if in only one position, if no other. But then to discover today how actually saying that we can't even afford Solanke from Bournemouth, never mind anything else. Well, that's a kick in the what's-its for people like myself who are hoping at least something like that would happen. And what he's saying is, forget it. It ain't. And Neil's just supported that. So it's it's putting the brakes on, killing expectations before they get too high, because they were generating up, winding up, including myself. And then there's FFP itself. Well, I said the other night that I thought it's not just Newcastle, but it particularly affects Newcastle. But when will the other clubs wake up to the fact that FFP only has any help for the top six, for the big six, as they call themselves? The rest of the league was never, ever in their mind when they did this. This was all about making sure the people at the top with the money could do just about what they like, where everybody else had to be stuck within various rules. And those clubs that didn't stick with the rules suddenly find themselves in all sorts of trouble, and others will follow. And I reckon that once people supporters soak all of that up and clubs soak it all up, they'll start thinking head on, what's this all about? Why are we involved in this? Because it's just stopping anything that's good. So yes, I think that if it was me, I'd be looking at legal ways to challenge it. The new European court ruling on the Super League, for example, to me is a lead into it. The European Court come out and said, well, that's just illegal. You can't do that. You can't tell clubs to do that. Well, what about FFP? You can't tell people how to spend their money. You can't tell businesses how to invest their money. But that's what they're doing, effectively. And so I think a challenge, I would rather it was a challenge by the 14 other clubs that aren't in the big six rather than just Newcastle. But if it was Newcastle, I wouldn't be upset about that. In fact, I'd be quite pleased, because they've been kicking us around the place for the last 2.5 years, trying to tell us we could be taken over, we couldn't be taken over, and had to be dragged by the hair and lots of other nasty places to the desk to say, well, all right, you can be to the takeover. Now, all of that's got to stop. And if it takes a court action of some kind, then so be it. But I'd rather it was not just Newcastle, but the other 14 wake up to the fact that they're not in. It doesn't help them either. It just plays into the hands that those have got, and not those that haven't got. So, yes, they played down. That's a long answer to a short question, really, but a good question. Yes, the Eels and Howe did play down the transfer window, and you could hear it loud and clear. Don't remember, listeners, I say that this morning to hear that we can't even afford Solanke because Bournemouth want a fortune. It was just another kick in the small places. But yes, time for action against FFP, in my view. Either that or have the balls to just say sod it and do what you like, and risk what happens. Because I think that's what Chelsea have done, and they've got away with it. They've risked small fines rather than be stuck in the way they have. So good question, and the implications of what he's asking, I think, are absolutely right. Yes, forget transfer window this time, and yes, time for a challenge on FFP. Okay,
Steve. Good evening. Good to see you. Give us your thoughts on what's been said by two high-profile members of Newcastle United staff, and John's suggestion about legal action.
Yeah, it's an interesting suggestion. Let's take Darren Neal's statement first, because obviously that's what's kicked it all off. Is Darren Neal's the smiling assassin? Because he smiled all the way through that blooming interview, didn't he? Either that or it was a smirk. I can't decide what the difference is sometimes. He's either that or he's the Prince of Darkness. They're the two names that we can bandy around from, because what he came out with really, really did cast a shadow over Tyneside. I think all day yesterday once he made his statement, and then obviously it's carried on all day today, and we're going to get it all day tomorrow when we're sitting in the pub before the match. Yeah, what he came out with was very, very interesting. I mean, is he just trying to calm the situation down? Is he trying to lead us down a path for us to understand why they're not going for some of the players that, let's say, like for example, have been speculated in all of our social media and in the press for weeks now, be it Calvin Phillips, being it Solanke or whomever. We then have Eddie Howe today, who comes out and says, you know, we can't afford Solanke. Dear me. Either that or he's playing another very, very clever bluff game. Or is he now in some sort of like headlock from the club? Who knows? I mean, there's lots of ways you could look at this. Going back to the original point, which was, you know, is it time for to bin FFP? Well, the only way we're going to get FFP altered or binned, altered is probably going to be a lot easier, is to get the other 13 clubs, or 13 other clubs, should I say, within the confines of the league's members, to stand up at a meeting. They have meetings every month to stand up and say, look, this needs to change. You've got clubs valued at 5 million plus. You've got, you know, the likes of Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal, all the top 6 clubs, Liverpool, Tottenham. They're all high value asset clubs. And because of that, they get huge advantage. And yet we're restricting all clubs to a limit of what, £105 million of trading deficit over a 3-year period. For me, the differential has grown exponentially since the decision was made on those figures, and perhaps they need to move. Perhaps the figures need to be 300 million or 400 million. And perhaps it should also be some sort of bounty that gets held. Maybe there should be something within the Premier League that sits there and says, like they've done in the EFL, right, well, you know, if you're going to spend that amount of money, there needs to be guarantees that if the club goes tits up, you've got the wherewithal to redeem itself and to cover the losses. So the owners put in some sort of redemption in that respect. Maybe that's the sort of thing. You've got to have these guarantees as well. That's the only change that I can see ever coming, unless there was like a massive sea change right from top to bottom with all 20, and they all decided that FFP could go out the window. The problem there would be that you would then be at loggerheads with UEFA. And let's face it, those 6 clubs that we've mentioned are not going to go against UEFA because they're the ones who always want to be in the Champions League, the Europa League, the conference, if they can't quite scrape themselves in, like Man United nearly ended up this season. Liverpool didn't make the Champions League, ended up in the Europa. But then you've got this added league that's coming in 2025-26, this championship of 32 teams across the world. And that's guaranteed a place for Chelsea, and it's guaranteed a place for Man City. So the gap is going to grow hugely. And those competitions as well are going to bring in between 30 and 50 and possibly 100 million if one of those 2 clubs wins that World Club Championship when it's in its inaugural phase in 2025. So there's huge rewards for those clubs that are already benefiting from sitting there and being talked about as the top 6. We're not being talked about in the top 6 anymore, Steve, because we're being strangled. We're being strangled by the top 6. We're being strangled by the very rules that they have dozens and dozens of ways of getting around. Or, shall we put it more bluntly, because they set the standard in the first place. They set the rules, they set the levels, and they knew, because they'd had the opportunity to grow over the last 5, 6 to 10 years, that their growth period, all of that commercial activity that they've been benefiting and gaining from being in Europe for all those years, has put them at such an advantage over everybody else, and that advantage will only continue. Because let's face it, everybody expected Newcastle to be the one that broke this, and you know, the restrictions that have come in are affecting everybody, but ostensibly they're not affecting the top clubs because they've already got that huge big gap in their commercial activity. There may appear to be a problem for the likes of Arsenal or Man United in this window, but that'll be gone in the summer. The gap, the problem's gone for them, but the problem remains for Newcastle United, who don't get into Europe again, remains for an Aston Villa, remains for an Everton, who are really, really desperate now, a Nottingham Forest, a Wolverhampton Wanderers, and all the other clubs that are hanging around in the middle. It needs some amazing lobbying by Amanda Staveley and whoever else goes to those meetings to try and get the 14 clubs to start talking about a change in FFP. That's probably the only way that I can see it.
Okay, what's your thoughts, Mitch?
Well, since the delights of beating the Mackhams on their home turf, I feel like this week my black and white chips have been well and truly pissed all over, to be fair, for one thing and another. Definitely those releases today are about pumping the brakes on expectation. But remember when we were going through the takeover and we were talking about geopolitics and what have you, and we said eventually that would go away and it would be replaced by something else. Welcome to the new game, everybody.
Yep.
This is the new game. We have to keep whatever we can do close to our chest, because if we give it away, you'll have somebody like Bournemouth say, right, Solanke, 50 million, please. Because everybody assumes we're the richest club in the world and we can just chuck dollars around like some sort of gangster at a strip club. It doesn't work like that. And it can't work like that. Very much so the way FFP has worked was to allow the top six to get into the loft, pull the ladder up before we got a foot on the bottom rung, and then shut the hatch behind them.
Yeah.
And so we're currently, lobbing things at the loft hatch to see if we can get it open again. And that's the position we're in. Everton's situation strengthened the Premier League's case beautifully.
Yeah.
A club who've been in the top flight for something like 70 years consecutively. But they're not one of the big six. They're just a big, recognised Premier League club. What a juicy example to make of under FFP, with an interesting set of circumstances, with Russian money being taken away and an arrogant owner who they tried to help make it go away and was so arrogant he left the things in they told him to take out and he failed buying that chuff, really. But they then turned around and say, this is us making FFP work really well. Isn't this? Let's all pat ourselves on the back because this is working. See how the other clubs feel once this next round come in. If it's Forest and if it's Wolves, I gather there's more than 4 who are in trouble. We aren't one of them, by the way, because those figures that are being released, like Steve rightly said, don't include Salah, don't include some of the new stuff that's coming through. This is pre all of that, and we're still doing all right, really. It was all part of that. The dance that we're doing. However, we've also had people within the ownership structure coming out and saying we want to be challenging for this and we want to be winning that and we want to be doing this and we want to be doing that. Well, yeah, but have we been clever enough and smart enough and on the ball enough to make enough clever moves under FFP to make this work? Where's Dan Ashworth and his so-called amazing South scouting network that brought all these cheap players into Brighton for him to sell on? I don't see any of that happening at the moment. And in fact, we're still in the dark as to whether he's been approached by Man U and whether he's interested about leaving the Man U or not. I think we've got to be honest enough to say We are not dealing with Mike Ashley's Newcastle United anymore. Anything that happens from now on is on them, the new ownership, and how they want to take this forward is entirely up to them. Playing down, I get why some people are tired of hearing the same thing. FFP injuries, FFP injuries. It is tiring. It's a gramophone on repeat, scratched and going back over the same lines. At the same time, you can't ignore some of that. Some of that is significant. Again, if I hear one more person say Harvey Barnes, it's just a broken toe, it isn't. Go and look up what a Lisfranc injury is. It's named after a Napoleonic surgeon, a French guy who used to treat cavalrymen who were knocked off their horses, but their foot stayed in the stirrup. And they take an absolute age to heal. And the problem for a footballer is he can't play with an insert in his boot like he can in other sports. There's ballerinas have had their careers ended with this injury, if you want to do a little bit of Googling. So, you know, it's a freak injury. It's one that doesn't happen often in football. And so you've got stuff like that, and Pope's dislocation. You know, some of these things are really quite frustrating. What I haven't heard from our club yet is any semblance of pushback. Now, I know they have to tread carefully because the Premier League will use Everton as the example, and if they can catch us out on something like Everton did, damn sure we'll have a watermelon-sized Lego butt plug shoved up our arse with no lube and being told get on with it. They'll love it. Yeah. They'll love if they can do that to it. So I get why we've got to be a bit cautious. But I think we as fan base would feel a little reassured if we understood there was a frustration and a bit of pushback. All we're hearing is a very meek and in no way at all combative response. Are you all as frustrated as we are? I would hope you are, but that's not what you're telling us. You're just telling us that you're quite happy to sit and take it. And again, there's definitely politics at play. Like I say, welcome to the new game. This is what's replaced the geopolitics. It's football politics and finance politics. You also have to remember as well, we're not playing just the Premier League's rules. There's a slightly different set of rules for UEFA with wages to turnover. And that's something that we've really struggled. I do also think that we have a number of opportunities that don't seem to have been taken at the moment. Somebody's just mentioned stadium name, training ground, training kit, etc., etc., etc. Is this all part of a strategy to keep the powder dry for the close season when the Adidas deal kicks in, and then suddenly we've got a massive amount of money coming in? And is the focus actually all season always been on the summer because so many things are going to change? And you know what? If they don't want to tell us that, that's fine. That's business practice. And probably clever. Because then, come the summer, people will not necessarily think the same way about us coming and knocking on the door and then find, oh, hang on, we could have taken them for more here. I just don't know. And as a fan, it's frustrating to be on this end of it all. We can see what we need to do. We can see where we need help. Losing Joe Linton for another 6 weeks is just a nightmare. It's seemingly never ending. But at the same time, it just feels like everybody's just throwing their hands up in the air and saying, woe is me, and there's not a lot of pushback on this. And that is what's frustrating me probably more than anything else.
Yeah, it is frustrating week, frustrating interviews coming out of Newcastle. And I said a couple of days ago, I felt like it might just be a little bit of gamesmanship to try and at least push the Phillips deal through. But at this moment in time, it certainly doesn't look like that. It certainly looks as if it's just doom and gloom coming out of Newcastle, and make do and mend for this season is probably
you're right, Steve. Yeah,
is the best way to describe it.
Yeah. I think the other aspect of it as well, Steve. I mean, that top line figure of £74 million loss, and then the cumulative, because of the way that the accounts are done, because of when they were done, it won't have taken into account spending like that can be then in terms of FFP removed. So it won't have covered the money to take over the women's team, for example.
Yeah.
There was talk of that costing over £5 million. There's the changes that had to be made inside St James's Park to fall in line with UEFA. There's the new executive areas that have been built. All of those are infrastructure, so they don't count. So they can be lifted out, and that's why the panic where people said, over 3 years we're now accumulated over 150 odd million. But in terms of FFP, there are lots of adjustments there. There's the UEFA money to come in. There's the Seller and the Adidas money to be tagged into that for the ongoing seasons and for Seller next season. So lots and lots of things. And I think there is headroom. I think there's probably quite a bit of headroom. But I think they're probably playing their cards very close to their chest. I think they have to. And I think that probably have targets in mind. And you also got to realise, people saying, sell Bruno for 100 million. Well, they paid 30 odd million for him, so it's not going to give you that much more headroom. They're going to bring 70 million pound in terms of amortization. It's going to look good on your books, but it's not really going to benefit you on the field. And I know that the Jack Grealish situation was totally different, because everything that Villa got for Jack Grealish went straight in, and he was a youngster, so they were able to amortize that over the 5-year period as well. So there's lots of tweaks and changes that can be made. Believe it or not, Newcastle would probably better off selling the likes of a Sean Longstaff than they would be removing a Bruno or an Isak, because of the value that the player has on them on that side of the accounting period. And that side of the amortization in terms of the books. So there's lots of things that could go on. I think Darren Eales was just really saying things on a very, very basic level. To be perfectly honest, Steve, I think he was just leveling it out on a basic level and just letting fans know, you know what, this is the way it is at the moment. But I think if we dug deeper, and if the club were honest and wanted to dig deeper and explain, then I think it would probably be different. But they don't need to. As Mitch says, they keep the powder dry, quite rightly, on so many aspects of it, Steve. So don't panic, is what I'm saying.
Layman's terms, certainly. I think that's it. I think it made it easier. Made it easier to understand. Okay, we're only going till 5 to 6 tonight, so it's an hour and a half show. As always, got quite a bit to get through, so I'm going to take you through tweets of the week. I was out for a walk in Tyne, Steve. I didn't realise you were moonlighting. Hasty Burton joinery, Steve. You've got you turn your hand. He turns his hands to all sorts, does our Steve.
Can I give you a Marjorie story on that one?
Go on.
When she was in charge of the works at the ambulance service, one of the companies she used to hire was Hasty Burton, and she used to love ringing them, because the girl had picked up the phone and used to have a very musical voice that used to be, "Hello, Hasty Burton," and Marjorie used to laugh her socks off at that.
Did you say that was quick?
Good stuff. Thanks everybody who sent these in. Too many to mention this week. Time flies. I did quite like that. Yes, very good. Open up. It's the police. Prove it. How? Sing Roxanne. There you go. And does anyone take broken lawnmowers? I've got 3 if they do. Dalton Francis replied, Rodney and Mickey Pierce do. Lisa then says, can you tag them for me, please?
Oh, God.
Clearly too young to remember. Only for the notice. Tweet of the week from Paul. He says, some people exercise every day. I'm watching a show I don't feel like because the remote fell on the floor. Sunderland's flag display went down well. I've seen a few different versions of it. Take your pick. And what would you look like as a Viking? Seems to be quite popular on Facebook. But that's what you would look like as a Viking, is the answer.
Clever.
You've heard of Machine Gun Kelly. Now get ready for Glue Gun Stanley. Not sure what to call this, a camullet or a mulliflage.
Very good.
Excellent. This one, arm wrestling machine used but still in good condition. All serious uppers considered.
Oh dear.
And Paul Allen, it's tweeted this originally, but Tim sent it to us. My mother-in-law sent me this shirt all the way from England. She must really like me, and I think it's from a yacht club. Very clever. Things you can do with wellies. Make a dog. And Oscar Pistorius was released from prison. Great to see his new girlfriend has said she's glad he's finally home, but a bit annoyed at having to get dressed up as if she needs every time she goes to the bathroom. Joke of the day from Jimmy. Glad to see you back out of hospital, mate. A man and woman were traveling in a train. Woman, every time you smile, I feel like inviting you to my place. Oh, are you single? No, I'm a dentist. One for you, Mitch. And what makes the world go round, Charlie Brown? Back-bottomed girls. Very good, Jimmy. See what you did there. Good old Queen number. Britain built by men who, in overalls, ruined by men in suits. Good old Fred.
Yep.
Good old Fred there. And bestseller of the 16th century, says Stephen, Making Marriage Work by Henry VIII. And when your alarm goes off and you realize it's Friday, I think we all feel like Steve Hasty.
Yep, definitely. Depends what time it goes off.
And for sale, due to an ungrateful child, apparently it wasn't the right time of Transformer.
Oh, brilliant.
We've all got Christmas presents you wish you'd never had. My friend's wife left him last week. She said she was going out for milk and never came back. I asked him how he was coping. He said, not bad. I've been using some of that powdered stuff. Thanks, Donald. And Ian, I'm sure you've sent this before, Ian. Things I hate. 1, vandalism. 2, irony. 3, lists.
Yes.
Alan Shearer got a bit stick this week. This was his Premier League team of the season so far. Not one Newcastle player in it. Come on, Alan. You could at least pick Trippier. And I feel bad for parents nowadays. You've got to explain the birds and the bees, the bees and the bees, the birds and the birds that used to be bees, the bees that used to be birds, the birds that look like bees, the bees that look like birds, but have still got a stinger.
Very clever.
Delivered in my best Ronnie Barker way as well. Oxfam, no more Sunderland shirts, please, after last weekend's derby. And yeah, we've had that one. It's Arsenal. What is the difference between Arsenal and a tea bag, says Gary Scott? The tea bag stays in the cup longer.
Oh,
very good. Ted the Mackham, who I work with on a morning. I can only apologise on behalf of all Sunderland fans, mate. Ideally, we should have gone to the chippy for you all too. He did get a bit of stick, poor Ted, this week after that. And people thanking him for the chocolates, thanking him for the free beer. Assault with deadly weapon. The good one. And Milli Vanilli, remember them? He had the old watching people get famous for lip syncing on TikTok. Last few, ground control and Major Toms parked together in America.
Brilliant.
Wow. And it all started when Joe Willock kept the ball in, but didn't. David still
hey, did you see his little tantrum?
Yeah. Oh no, I missed that.
There's a video of him having a little tantrum at the players in the changing room.
Oh, fantastic!
It's fantastically bad.
another meltdown. And this one, I'm at the age when I don't know if I want the mum or the daughter, says Stephen. That's the risky one of the week. Thank you, Stephen. And this one is a beautiful table lamp. It comes with a shade with its two-tone stone looking and very modern. Will look nice in the front room or bedroom. This is what happens when you get somebody who doesn't know technology trying to load something onto Facebook Marketplace. He's also added a photograph of him with 2 watches up his nose and 2 watts up in his mouth. Unbelievable. And finishing off this week with TripAdvisor. I'm not sure if you saw these lads, but Sunderland Football Club managed to get a few Nice comments after last week's derby. Love the new decoration of the Black Cats bar. Such a cheerful welcome for supporters of the bigger club to the north. Particularly enjoyed seeing the bold black and white decor, the cheer of Peter Reid mirror, and the corrected spelling of the local dialect word of encouragement, Howie on the wall. All in all, a fine job by our Mackham mates. This one as well. Outstanding hospitality today at Sunderland. Welcome to the stadium at 9 a.m. with the red carpet rolled out to their Black Cats bar. The staff were extremely polite and helpful. A credit to the Championship club. Disappointed to have the Newcastle banners removed prior to the game, which was probably the only low of our short trip. Thanks for letting us wear our home kit and, more importantly, scoring our first goal. Would I visit again? Well, probably only for a cup tie clash, because I think it's a long way off us both being in the same division. Love, NUFC. And the last one was this one. Match at Sunderland on TripAdvisor. The journey to the stadium was strange, with lots of six-fingered locals staring at our buses. Once we disembarked, the walk to the ground was well marshalled. Before entering our access point, we saw more teenage youths hiding behind barriers, waving plastic recycled flags used at previous games. The stadium itself was okay, but stadium concourse was not fit for purpose. The bars are only a few feet long and understaffed. To be fair, this was a one-off, and the north stand is usually not full. The view was really good, and the local team rolled over for us. The home support were vocal for a short while until the visiting side deservedly took the lead. After that, they sat obediently in silence, other than the occasional booing of opposition players. All in all, I've had a great experience, and I'll probably return, but it'll probably have to be for a cup match. Stadium view, 7 out of 10. Facilities, 3 out of 10. The town of Sunderland, 2 out of 10. Well worth a look on the Stadium Alike, lads and lasses, if you want to have a laugh. Well worth tuning into that. If Sunday League had VAR,
yes.
Always room for a Star Trek one. There was a transporter accident that eliminated 20% of your couch. Ouch.
Oh.
Very good. And this one, Mackham's, they'll try to steal anything. Excellent. Thanks for your tweets of the week. Thanks to everybody who sends them in.
Yeah.
We will feature some more next week. And Tom says he loves reading the reviews. Yeah, there's some absolutely hilarious reviews on there. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, we're going to, as I say, we've only got an hour left of the show. So I want to look at the Man City game now. George, Man City press conference and Newcastle's press conferences took place today. We know Joe Linton's going to be missing for 6 weeks. We've discussed Newcastle's ever-growing injury list and the fact that there's still 11 players unavailable. Man City have had their own issues. They've hit a little bit of a blip. I do still think they'll win the league this season. I think they will come through that blip. But are we playing them at the right time? De Bruyne hasn't featured in the Premier League yet. Made his return in the FA Cup last week. Haaland is ruled out of tomorrow's game now, which is a blessing for us. They're also missing John Stones at the back. So 3 key players are missing. Eddie made the point in his press conference, of course, that, you know, we don't just focus on a couple of players. They've got great players across the squad. But is this an opportunity for Newcastle? They've had a week off. Yes, they've lost Joe Linton, but they've still got a good enough squad there to compete. Is this a chance for Newcastle to, you know, to get something out of this game?
Yes, Steve. I mean, you lads know that I'm Mr. Optimistic when it comes to Newcastle United. Sometimes too much, but on this one, I take you back 18 months and imagine Bruce and Ashley still in place. I'd have gone into this game expecting it to get rattled, well and truly rattled. Why? Because the 11 on the pitch might have tried, might not have tried, possibly tried. Well, the one thing I'm certain of is tomorrow is whatever 11 goes out for Newcastle United, they'll try their bloody socks off. And that'll do me. And if they do that, they're in with a shout. Because other teams have shown that Manchester City can be vulnerable. Last year, we're the only team to stop them twice scoring. The only team in the Premiership. So, and most of our back 4 or 5 are the same people apart from the goalkeeper. So I'm optimistic enough to think that, like you, that it probably is a good time to play them. I gather that Haaland's not playing, but De Bruyne, people are saying in the press that De Bruyne is on the bench, where Pep Guardiola is saying he's playing. So, but I think that's matterless. We've got to cope with him whether he's on at the beginning or whether he comes on as a sub. And that's the fact of life. So I'm optimistic enough to think that if the 11 that goes out there play to their potential, we've got a good chance. We've still got quite a good side, in my view, even allowing for the injuries. Where we're stuck is substitutes. You know, we could be in that stupid position of having 3 goalkeepers as substitutes again. I hope not, but that's where we're at. That's the bare bones of our squad at the moment. But my optimism comes from the fact that I'm still convinced that the 11 that go out in black and white tomorrow will try their socks off to get a result, and it could be just the thing that tips the balance.
Okay, yeah, Steve, I've gone bold on this on the breakfast show this morning. I think Newcastle will win tomorrow. I think Newcastle will win 2-1. I've just got a feeling. I think Newcastle will have had a good week this week. It sounds like they have, apart from the Joe Linton injury. But I still think Newcastle got more than enough to beat them. And I do get what people are saying in the chat as well. I think that still things look a little bit uncertain with Pep Guardiola. It's not the same Pep that we're used to. Listen. Still done fantastically well. He says today that the trip away did them the world of good, got them back focused. They started off the season slowly. They were tired because of their exertions with the treble. But ultimately, I don't think it's the same. And I think there has been a bit of imbalance and long-term injuries to Haaland in particular and De Bruyne have affected Man City a lot more than maybe Pep thought they would. So, yeah, I still think Newcastle can get something tomorrow. So I'm going to go bold. I'm going to go for a Newcastle win. What's your overall thoughts on this game? I'm not worried about it. I think it's I'm looking forward to it. You're seeing at the moment the best team in club football coming to St James's Park. It's a game to be excited about.
Yeah, and don't forget, Steve, I sit next to George, so I have to be optimistic as well. Otherwise, my arm would take an absolute battering, I can tell you. No, you're dead right. I mean, I don't think City are as fluid in terms of the way they're playing as they were last season. I've just put up the teams from last year, Steve, just as a comparison. Obviously, we've got Pope out, but I'm expecting our back four to be exactly the same as it was. Trippier, Shaw, Botman, and Byrne. Bruno still be in centre midfield. We're without Joe Linton and we're without Joe Willock. So there's 2 spots available to be filled in the midfield compared to them. But we'll still have Almiron wide on the right. We had ASM and Wilson. Now we'll replace ASM with Gordon and we replace Wilson with Isak. Does that make the forward line any weaker? I don't think so. And then you look at their team and the changes that they've had to make. I mean, at the back, obviously Edison, but you look at that back four and it's virtually an entirely different back four in Cancelo, Ake, Stones and Walker. I think there's only probably Walker available. I don't know whether Ake has been playing, and obviously Cancelo isn't there anymore and Stones is injured. A midfield, again, totally different. Gundogan, he's gone. Rodri, he sits in the centre, but could well be playing in a back four. And De Bruyne, I don't think will start, to be perfectly honest. When I listened to Guardiola, I got the impression he was saying he's had a good week. He's had a run out, and I think he's hedging his bets in terms of giving him another spot on the bench because there's some important games coming up. And then up front, they had Bernardo Silva, who's still there, Foden, and obviously Erling Haaland, who's out. So changes right across, but we played really, really well in that game with that lineup. And I don't think our changes to our lineup have weakened us as much as the changes have to Man City, because I think it's impacted with them the flow of how they play. They don't play with the dynamism that they had. And it only takes that 1%. I mean, they've got some great players that have come in, and I look at Alvarez, and I think he's a class act. But there's no reason why we should be going in feeling pessimistic just because of the injuries. Where it'll change is who we've got available on the bench, and we know that that's a big weakness. I think there's possibly also a doubt, though it's never been mentioned, over Lewis Miley. Miley took that horrendous challenge, which really knocked him off his feet, didn't it? Off 09. He seemed to pick himself up and dust himself off, but I was standing in the the sterile zone as the players came out, and I chatted to quite a few of the players, and as they were walking out, and we had a laugh, congratulating them, and they were chuffed to bits, and thanks mate, oh it was great, you did this, did that. Lewis was limping, and limping rather badly, not as badly as Joe Linton was, who virtually had to be helped onto the bus, to be perfectly honest. But Miley was certainly looked as though he was struggling, and there's been nothing mentioned about Miley during the week. So we'll see whether or not he's available, because he's a vital cog in that midfield. If Joe Linton's not there, because he's done what he's been asked to do, and he does it simply and he does it effectively. And I think for a young lad of 17, that's a huge plus. And we've also seen that he's not scared to, go out there and play against the Chelseas and the Man Uniteds, and obviously an opportunity against City. He played against PSG. He's unfazed against Dortmund, unfazed against Milan. So these are all plus points for Lewis Miley. So I think it would be great if we do have him available. Be interesting to see if he's not, who Eddie then slots in.
Steve, sorry to interrupt you, but talking about Lewis Miley, didn't you and I see or feel that there was 20 minutes of the Nottingham Forest match? He was the only midfield player that was playing. Yeah. The rest had disappeared. Yeah, you're right, George. Yeah, I mean, we had this conversation afterwards. You were with Mitch, and I'm sure that was the conversation that was relayed back when we chatted after the game. So yeah, absolutely. He's a smashing player, the only trouble is, as we said earlier, he's one of those players that could be jettisoned if the club really did have FFP problems in the future. You just look at what Man City did, and you look at what Chelsea have done and are still doing. You look at the way they have decimated the youth policy that they've had, getting rid of players. So, but no, I'm optimistic, Steve. I think we can get at least a point, and there's no reason why we can't get 3 points tomorrow, because we've just got to play on the front foot. And I think the result that we got against Sunderland last week has shaken a few cobwebs away. And I think a week's training, we saw what a week did before the Sunderland game. And I think that this is a squad of players, especially with the changes that we've had to make through injury. I think it's a group of players that need to be talked through a game, talk through the style, talk through the tactics beforehand, and practice what the manager's looking for, because there's so many changes and there's so much to absorb and take in, because Eddie wants them to play to a particular way. And I think this is a team that benefits from being together fully for a week on the training pitch, as opposed to chatting in a hotel, chatting on a bus, chatting on an aeroplane, and then doing some warm-ups and warm-downs. Because I think that's what we've had for the last 10 weeks.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's good stuff. Somebody's asked if we can have a talk in with Steve Hasty, a Q&A with Steve Hasty online, like we've had with George. I do the occasion one. Well, we're going to arrange it. We might have one soon. I'll speak to Steve about that. Mitch, Newcastle against Man City.
And
big game.
Steve's taken a little bit of me thunder in terms of Miley, because I'd heard the same as him, that he was maybe a doubt also, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Hall start tomorrow in midfield. But the one thing about Miley coming in, if he's starting, the Miley that we're starting tomorrow is head and shoulders above the young man that did 45 minutes against Man City in the Cup. He's grown so much, and there's so much confidence that he can be there and more than do a job. As my dad rightly says, we picked up on midway through the second half against Forest. He was the only one in midfield who was actually trying to play. You know, the remainder were trying to kick everything in sight.
Yeah,
it was so frustrated, Bruno included. So it wouldn't surprise me to see a little bit of a surprise in the lineup tomorrow. But does that make me feel concerned? No. We've got the heart to take these on. We've shown it. And we're at home. St James's Park is still a big place for some people to come. And they shouldn't be allowed to boss the game just because of who they are. I will be surprised if he starts De Bruyne, because knowing how Pep treats players with injuries, probably the only call I think I've ever seen him get wrong was De Bruyne in the Champions League final.
Yeah.
And his hamstring went so badly, he's lost him for a hell of a long time. And so I'll be surprised to see him just chuck him in right now. I think they'll bring him off the bench. I mean, what a weapon to have on the bench, obviously. But, you know, I think that's the way it would go. I think, again, we're seeing a little bit of mind games. Pep doesn't seem like the Pep he usually is to me either. There's something going on at Man City for me.
Yeah, me too.
He doesn't seem happy. He doesn't seem as comfortable. He seems a little bit irritable. I think people can get under his skin very easily. I think the thing with Pep's teams is that tumbles down into the dressing room.
Yeah.
That you can get under their skin. And I think if we can give them a go in the first 10 minutes and have a real damn good go at them and get under their skin, it won't be a cakewalk. We can't make it a cakewalk for them. We've got to do everything within our power to upset them. And I'm quite sure this is where I wish Wilson was available. As a defender, I would hate to mark Callum Wilson. He's touchy, he's feely, he's physical, he's always wanting contact. He always wants to chat and to smile in your face if you kick him up the arse, you know, all those things that as a defender gets on your wick. And I would want everybody, I want Gordon snapping at his best, because he certainly looked like he was back at his best at the weekend.
Yeah.
And let's give Miggy some plaudits for the weekend, that high press. When the left back decided he was going to do a Cruyff turn in his own area, well, he got what he deserved because someone was doing their job. And that's what it comes back to. If we got an 11 out to do their job, we'll still give Man City a game, no matter who's missing.
Yeah. Fortunately, it was a Jordi Cruyff, not a Johan Cruyff turn.
Very true. Yeah.
Okay, plenty to get through. We'll come to the predictions later. As you know, you can take out a membership. We advertise it every week. Well, every show on every week. And John has had his issues over the course of the last 12 months, to say the least. But we have finally got the members draw back tonight. We'll be doing a couple over the course of the next couple of days, because we've got Nobby Solano at the Irish Centre a week tonight. So we're giving away a pair of tickets to a member. So if you have taken a £25 one-off fee membership, keep an eye on the screen now. And the winner is number 136, Kay Forster. You are the winner of 2 tickets for Nobby Solano. If you give John a shout in the chat, or John will email you, you can claim your tickets, and we will see you next Friday. Okay, halfway through the show, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks again to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you'd like to order some, then give them a call on 01768 210 102. Go to the website, mrvickys.co.uk, or drop them an email, info@mrvickys.co.uk. A big thanks to United Group Travel. They're a family firm based in Morpeth with pickups throughout the Northeast. No strangers on our tours, just people you haven't met yet. They've got a presence on Facebook and a website, unitedgrouptravel.com. If you want to make a booking, give them a call on 01670 632 460, or mobiles 0791 666 4174, 0795 71 41654. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. Let us look after you in your time of need. They're based on Old Durham Road in Gateshead, and you can contact them at their website, darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk, or give them a call, 0191 478 2730. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And a big thanks to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. If you want to help the channel, hit the thumb up to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and share to your other social media. You can also pay a one-off fee of £25 to get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. Go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and click membership, or put your smartphone over this QR code. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make some donations virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. We're also a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcast providers. Just search NUFC Matters. I'm also a part of the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show. You can listen to that Monday to Friday, 7 till 9 at thetooneuk.com. We've also got an event coming up next year. It's in January the 19th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. It's an evening with Nobby Solano. Tickets are available on Voucher for £20. Okay, welcome back to NUFC Matters. And I thought Mitch was moving a chair around or something there, so I did mute him briefly. He's a little tinker on a Friday night, believe you me. Okay, tune lookalikey. Thanks for sending them in. It was a late one from Mitch, Darren Eales and Ed Davey. Thanks, George.
Yeah. I just thought we were talking about them, and I happened to switch on Davey just after I listened to Eales, and I thought, well, that's not far away, is it?
No, it's pretty good. Well, you grab the ethos. You know what it's all about, George. So fair play. I had this one. Nick, you remember Lorraine back in the days when she was a roving reporter? Somebody said that she looked a bit like.
Oh dear me! She'll be chuffed about that.
Tell you what, that is blinding.
It's not far away. It's not far away.
I mean,
you're not going anywhere near her, Patty. Oh Jesus!
That's as far as the comparison goes, I'd say. Mike said this one. I've had this one in my head for a long time. He says, Mandy. He says, I'm sure she can take a joke. Is that Ozzy Osbourne? It is, isn't it?
It is. That's Ozzy.
I think it's the eyes, the expression. So yeah, I'm sure she can, Mike. It was done with the right intentions. This one as well. Rumor has it that this is the Mackham twin sister of Francis Chip. Thank you, Daddy, for that. I don't have a good photo of Francis Chip, so I can't share it. Thanks for this one as well, Mark. He says, see, the guy looks like Steve Rathers on the team photo again. He's actually picked me out, and he's actually picked me out in the crowd. Yeah.
Nice one.
Very good. A young Steve Hasty in the Wild West. From Mark as well. And Steve Hasty on his holly bobs, which I missed in August. Steve, last year. Great photo. That is you.
That is I.
The face. I mean, obviously the face.
I think it's all me. I think.
All right. Okay. I'd rather you said that than me. Tim Cairns says Scouse and the Weetabix. Spot the difference. And Eugene Levy and Martin O'Neill.
Yeah.
Very good. Pretty sure I had that years ago. But there we go. Worth a shout. Daniela Westbrook and Robbie Nielsen.
Sick.
It's slightly better than what she normally gets compared to, I've got to be honest. And with it being Man City, Tim said, I thought I'd chuck this one in again.
Oh, dear me.
It is good. Stu Penman sent this one in. A couple of Steve Hasty lookalikes, he said. And Gary Wilmot and Giovanni.
That is spooky.
It is.
Thanks to Tom Dixon for that one. Ben White or Madge Harvey?
Excellent.
Yeah, Mickey.
Excellent.
Mick Gilchrist sent this one in. Sven Gordon Eriksson and Mario Zagula. Very good. Our thoughts go with Sven. Obviously, horrendous news this week. About his terminal cancer.
Yeah.
And David Hasselhoff and Jens Lehmann. I think it's more the stance, isn't it? It's more the stance, little bit there in the eyes.
Yeah.
I shared the video that somebody sent us of me doing my interview with Gerald Sinstadt before the Man U game in 1990. This led to Kev, me mate, sending us this. Thanks, Kev. And Mickey, having looked at the photographs of the new fan advisory board, wondered if that was a suitable lookalike. I think it was the glasses that did it. So yeah, thanks for sending it. Roy Orbison, I get it. JK and John McCririck.
At me.
And this one's been sent in before, but I never get sick of saying that. Definitely does look like.
Gibbo.
Yes, even Joe shouted it out.
That was Mitch.
It was Mitch. That was a tweet of the week that I missed, actually. Tattoos from around the world: Philippines, Japanese, India, and Bradford. Babby girl. Thanks, Stephen. That was a good one. Okay, top 3 lookalikes. Here we go. Oliver Reed and Andre.
Well, yeah.
Now I like this one. I've got a few of these from the same person. That's an interesting way of submitting them. Karen Gillan,
Wow.
Brittany Robertson, Ralph Fiennes and Bradley Cooper, and Zooey Deschanel and Alexis Beadle. Very good, that. Like
Wow.
it. So thank you for that. And this is me winner this week. Imagine walking through a museum and finding yourself a 100-year-old painting of yourself from another life.
Yeah.
That is
Bloody hell.
That is a great lookalike. That brilliant stuff. Thanks for all of those lookalikes. Keep them coming in. We'll get some more next week. And if you're wondering how to send them on Twitter at Steve Wraith or one of the lads if you know them, or go to the Facebook page or group, stick them on there, and we'll pick them up in due course. Michael got in with a question earlier on. He says, any thoughts on all the muscle injuries from the stop and start of the game due to VAR, George? He said the muscles have time to relax due to long VAR stops, and then players restart games with the intensity. I would say probably not with Newcastle, but there has been a lot of injuries at other clubs. And, does it play its part, George, or not?
Well, it's inevitable. Any significant stop, you get a period when you start again where your muscles are in danger. I mean, that's just not a modern thing. That's that goes back to my day that when you stop, they always used to try and make sure you're warmed up. Or the old-fashioned way was to come on with a bottle of liniment, wasn't it? I'm sure you've had liniment on your legs.
Oh yes, back in the old days, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it was about. Just to warm your leg up to get your muscles going again. So yes, the most horrific one we've had in our game, that one against Arsenal, the three checks. I mean, I think our players stood around with the Arsenal players for nearly 10 minutes till that was cleared up. And well, that immediately puts you in danger. Immediately, any sudden movement after that, and you've got to be careful. So yes, there is an issue about stopping and starting. There's no question about that. Whether it's worse with VAR, I've got to say, hand on heart, I think it must be, because some of the periods where people are held up waiting for the answer are significant. And it's significant, and a thing like that can be 5 minutes. That's all it takes. And because normally when it's stopped like that, they're warming down. That's why they spend another, nearly an hour on the pitch after the game warming down, so that they don't go home and sit in the armchair, watch Match of the Day and stretch and pull another muscle, because that's what the sort of thing that happens. So yes, I think there is an issue that needs to be looked at, but it just isn't a new one for me. It's always been an issue. And as I say, going back to the old days when they used to bring the liniment on, that's what the liniment was for, was to warm you up.
Okay, Steve?
You don't get the magic spray anymore, do you? You don't get the cloud of spray.
No.
That seems to have disappeared. You remember it was one World Cup, wasn't there, where the bloke walked down, the Brazilian, and he had almost like a gun, and he sprayed it all over. There was just this huge big cloud. You know, it's an interesting one. It was interesting, when Joe Linton went down injured, and then he had to stand around because he had gone down injured. He then has to, once he wants to come back on the field, has to wait for 30 seconds. And if you remember, he was desperate to get back on. He only lasted 4 minutes, 3 minutes in the second half before his thigh eventually went. So obviously there was issues with him. I mean, we went down a couple of times and got treatment. And I don't know about you guys, but every time you went down, it was like, oh God, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this whole business of players standing around it's an interesting sort of bolt on to all the questions that we have about VAR and the times that it's taking, etc., etc. But how refreshing was it last week to play a game without VAR? You know, that for me was absolutely brilliant because the game flowed. It absolutely flowed.
Yeah.
What it also showed, by the way, was that referees like Paulson struggle to make decisions
Without VAR.
Without VAR, without relying on VAR, they're panicking.
Because VAR takes the hard ones.
That's right. Just going back something, Steve, there was a photograph came up there of Zagallo, the Brazilian manager. He was actually the first person to win World Cup as both a player and manager. Believe it or not, he played in the two Brazilian World Cups in 58, 62. And then he managed them in 1970. Now, he's just passed away this year. He was only 38 when he managed Brazil in the 1970 World Cup. You look at him on the touchline, he looked about 68. It's amazing, you know, and when you see football in the past and you see how old, I mean, you know, Bobby Charlton just passed away last year, the back end of the year. And as a footballer, even in his 20s, Bobby Charlton looked ancient, didn't he? But no, it was just when I saw that photograph, it just reminded me about Zagallo. But that was the Brazil, and what got me going was the fact that I'm sure it was in 74, I think, when the Brazilian trainer used to run on the pitch. I don't know if you remember him, and he was also there during. And he used to have like a belt around him, didn't he? Like he didn't carry a bag; he had it all around his waist and a belt, everything hanging off on all the sprays and everything, you know, and sprint across the pitch. And maybe we need Derek Wright back. You know, no pun intended. Right back. We've got a few right backs in the team anyway, but maybe we need Derek back to sort out. He's over in Saudi at the moment, I understand, working with the football authorities over there. But he was a top class physio, and he ran that, and we didn't seem to have as many injury problems as we seem to be having now. And maybe it's a case of, you know, getting the right information, dealing with the right injury at the right time in the right manner, and maybe the experience that the likes of Derek had of 30 years of and longer as a physio, and now when new people come in, maybe things change, and not for the better. But yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot to be said for that time that you spend standing around, and what the impact can be on injuries.
Yeah, I would agree. We're coming into your domain, Neil. Thoughts on this?
Yeah, Steve's just said the key word there, standing around.
Yeah.
Why are our players standing around? Okay. Look, I'll give you an example. American football, they have timeouts, they have television timeouts, they have VAR reviews, and multiple stoppages in the game. And every game, every play starts with a set piece. When I was playing American football, I played for Newcastle Argonauts, I played for Gateshead Senators, I played for Newcastle University Bulldogs, and I played for the combined UK universities team. Every time the game stopped, we were told, drop to a knee, conserve your energy, stretch. Stretch your hamstrings, stretch your calves, stretch. Keep yourself warm. Our lot, maybe go and have a drink, stick a finger up their arse, scratch something, wander around. They're not being told to keep themselves limber. So I get why people can think about that. point that was made on the strapline before about rugby has a lot more stoppages and doesn't have the same level of injury in terms of muscles. You're right, but again, I think they're told in downtime, keep yourself moving. I don't think our lot are. I think our lot can do pretty much what they want, and as professionals, you should be seeking to be at the top of your game in every way, shape, and form. And as you know, like I say, I mean, I didn't play at a massive level in terms of American football, but I played to the best that I could. And one of the things that still sticks with me is if the game stopped, stretch, keep yourself limber, keep yourself ready. Because if you want to be explosive from the next set piece, what you don't want is to be explosive off the line, feel your calf go, and then you're fucked for 4 weeks. It's ridiculous. So could it be a factor? Yeah, maybe. I just don't know what our lot are being told. I don't know what our lot are being advised in terms of what they should be doing once a game goes dead. I don't know what our lot are being told in terms of supplements and hydration. I don't know what our lot are being told because I can see a lot of them using snus and stimulants, and that's fine. It's not illegal. But again, how much does that affect things like injury impact? We don't know, and there's not the studies to say one way or the other. But for me, I don't think VAR per se is a problem, but I think how our players are managing themselves in downtime might be a problem.
These are the marginal games. Marginal gains, that 1%, these tiny little things. This is Dave Brill's.
Here's a hill I will die on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The difference between John Joe Shelby and Lionel Messi is less than half of 1%.
Yeah.
And I'll die on that hill. Because that's what it takes.
Yeah.
If you factor out the people that make it through academies, that make it at a professional level, that make it to the international level, that make it to the world stage, that become legendary players. The difference from top level to legendary is maybe 1%.
Yeah.
And it's nout. And it's why some people succeed who don't necessarily have the talent, but they can apply themselves in other ways. And why some people disappear who have the talent, but can't apply themselves. Yeah. Ravel Morrison. I know people at West Ham who've coached Ravel Morrison. They've also coached Frank Lampard, Joe Cole, and a number of Michael Carrick, and Carrick's brother, and a number of other people who've come through the West Ham system. And if you say to them, who's the best player you've ever worked with, they will all say, Ravel Morrison. And they'll do it without thinking about it. But why is Ravel Morrison not, at the centre of every England team in the last 10 years? Because he's a tosser. He threw his talent in the bin. But in terms of natural talent, everybody I've ever known who's come into contact with him has said, natural talent, unbelievable. Mentally, nuts. And these are the margins. These are these tiny little margins that we sometimes think mean nothing. And again, I'll give you something from my world. Something that we're putting a paper together for FIFA at the minute from the European Academy of Sports Dentistry. We now have data that says an elite group athlete who is orally healthy, it's a measure of their performance. So you're talking professional footballer, you're talking Olympian. If they are made orally healthy, their performance improves. These are the margins we're working with.
Tiny.
Yeah. I read an interview with Niall Ranger the other day where he said coming up to the age of 32 or 33 that he was starting to look after himself. I thought,
Oh, really? Well done.
you're about 15 years too late, son. You know, he wanted to be telling younger players and he thought he was the perfect person to tell younger players how to
He
look
probably
after
is.
themselves.
Yeah, probably.
He probably is. Do you know what it is, Steve? He probably is. You get someone like him, and you get someone like my mate Tony Loma.
Yeah.
Who was the next Jackie Milburn. And you get him to talk about the pressure put in there by the local press and by everybody else who were telling him he was the next Jackie Milburn.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, mind blown. Good to have the expert's opinion, and I do classify Mitch as an expert on those kind of things. So good to have you on, mate, and good opinions. Okay, got about 10 minutes left, lads. Time for the DIM. The day I met, we're asking you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle United, past or present. Spenny, thanks for this one. Andy Fee meeting Ryan Taylor. There was a few representatives at the match last week, and Chris Waddle and Adam Packle-Tree. So thanks for those photographs, lads. Two legends from different ends of the spectrum with Newcastle United. If you've got a photograph of you meeting somebody from the club, send it in and we'll feature them on the show. Just finish up on this, George. Tom Dixon saying, question for the lads. What do you think of the FA Cup TV time for the Fulham game? Some supporters are unhappy about it. Eddie Howe was asked not once, not twice, but 3 times about it at the press conference. I don't know whether it was just because certain journalists didn't hear the first answer to the question or whether they'd run out of questions because somebody had asked them one of their questions before it was their turn, but they got the same answer. I mean, Eddie's not happy about it, but I mean, what can he do? Nothing. It's TV, it's money, George, at the end of the day, which dictates.
What can anybody do about it? The word fan doesn't even come into their equation. They don't care if it's bloody midnight kickoff as long as they get it on television where they want it on television. And I understand that's for the American market, basically. So that's where they want the money off the game. But in terms of supporters, it's outrageous. But also in terms of Eddie Howe and his players playing at that time of night, again, they must have to warm up in a special way to get ready for a game like that because they're not going out on a. They're going out when the atmosphere is probably going to be very chill. So they want to be ready to go as soon as they're going out and not standing around doing sweet F all until the referee blows the whistle. So I hate the fact that the fans don't even enter that equation, and that annoys me about modern football. Well, it annoys me about even Newcastle United about the way fans are being treated. Well, that's a prime example. Everybody else is considered where there's money concerned, except the fans. Nobody says, how did they get home? How did they do this? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. They just want a full stadium for their audience, and that's all that matters to them. After that, doesn't matter. And that's the saddest thing about the whole thing. But you're right to raise it. It's an outrage in many ways. But then again, if we want money into the game, what we've got to do, we've got to pander where the money is. And unfortunately, the money happens to be in television.
Yep, Steve, another annoying kickoff time. I think there's only Luton Town away that hasn't been moved for some sort of TV for Newcastle.
And as Jules said, it's on ITV4. It's 7:00 on a Saturday. Yeah. And there's no 5:30 game. What does that tell you? No 5:30 game. So there was a slot that could have done that would have accommodated Newcastle fans who wanted to travel or travelling to London on a Saturday in the middle of January. with all the problems that entails with train times and leaving. But no, they've still stuck with it. 2 o'clock in East Coast of America, 7 o'clock here, 11 o'clock for Mitch in Dubai, 10 o'clock for Stewie in Bahrain. God knows what the time is going to be for those further far east. The Indian lads, God knows what the time is for them. It's supporters are the last people to be looked at, last people to be considered. They're the first people to be considered when they want fans in the ground, when they want an atmosphere, and they want flag displays. And the TV companies would be the first to complain when there is no atmosphere, or they're having to play in front of grounds in grounds that are only half full.
Well, Steve, weren't we once threatened when Ashley was there, when the stadium was sort of half empty? There wasn't a TV threat that if we didn't get the seats filled, they might pull out.
Yeah,
and prompted Ashley to give the tickets away.
Yeah,
that's right. Exactly. That's the sort of thing that happens. It shows you who's running football now. It's really down to broadcasters because of the amount of money that's thrown at them, thrown at the clubs by the broadcasters. But in this case, it's the FA Cup, not the Premier League. So it's the FA that are taking all the money. It's the FA with their TV deal. And you'd think they would be doing everything they could to encourage the FA Cup as a competition to be shown, and for fans to get behind it, especially a fourth round. But no, I listened to Thomas Concannon from War Flags, who's also part of the FSA, and he was on Talk Sport this afternoon, and he spoke very eloquently and argued his point with the various people on Talk Sport. I think it was Simon Jordan, because I think it was just before, just round about lunchtime, and he spoke very well and he put up great points. But quite frankly, Thomas and Newcastle United Supporters Trust and the FSA, they're all peeing in the wind when it comes to complaining, because I remember back in 2008, 2009, Mitch, I think somebody wrote a letter to the authorities complaining about the kick-off time for Newcastle United, and got a very churlish reply. We got no support from the club at the time. You had to go down that route yourself, complaining to the TV people and complaining to the Premier League and the AFL or whoever it was at the time. We got no help, no support. So it's nothing new. The contempt that fans are held in when it comes to kick-off times is nothing new. It's starting to affect more and more clubs. But it was very, very interesting. I think one of the throwaway remarks that Jordan made was about, well, what do the fans expect? The distance that they have to travel. They're stuck in the north. It's just one of those things. There was no, some sort of dispensation should be made for Newcastle fans or anything like that. So I'm not surprised, but I think we are peeing in the wind when we complain about it, because it's been going on for so long. And I think Newcastle fans have been the ones who've done the most shout about it. It's only recently we've started to see, because Newcastle have been on the telly an awful lot, start to see Arsenal fans complain about travelling up here. Tottenham fans complain about travelling up here for kick-off times, Fulham fans, and so on and so on. So fans around the country complain about coming up here for 4:30 or evening kickoffs. Crystal Palace as well. I think there was complaints put in about the cup matches and stuff like that. So look, we'll shout as much as we like, but I honestly think we're peeing in the wind.
Yep, Scunny Mags, there's a few decent hostels at Shepherd's Bush. You'll get 2 or 3 overnight for less than the price of a single ticket. Bad for those who need to get back, but great excuse for a night in the capital. He always looks on the bright side. Alan McKenzie's trying to find a price for Newcastle women in the FA Cup against Man United. He says, I just fancy a double us and City, which is all right. Tim Cairns going down the Joey Barton route. He says, when our games are on the telly these days, I watch it on mute. Doesn't like the commentators, male or female, by the sounds of it. David Cook says, see Big Six media reporting we are broken enough to sell our stars. Dafties. Yes, David, dafties indeed. What I don't understand about amortization is will, says Stephen Howe, is what I don't, here it is is will clubs buying players not want to spread payments over a number of years too? Seems to be an assumption we get the whole fee up front. Yeah, there's lots of food for thought with that. We'll cover it more on the professionals on Sunday. Just finishing with you, Mitch. Really, just on kick-off times. It's just down to TV. Steve and your dad are right. It's not going to change.
But it suits TV out here and it suits TV in America. You're talking lunchtime kickoff in America.
Yeah.
You're talking the 10 if you're in Saudi, 11 in UAE. And as Steve would tell you, this place doesn't come alive till after 9:30 at night.
Yeah.
So it does catch a certain degree of the biggest catch-all at 7 o'clock UK. The trouble with that is I think it leaves Newcastle fans one train to get home of. I think it's the 9:10, which you're going to struggle to get from Craven Cottage.
Yeah.
You know, do they care about that? No, they don't. Like Steve absolutely said, we wrote to them. We wrote to them when, as part of the trust, when I was interim chair and Steve was helping me with the trust, we wrote to the Football League and said, you've just moved this game in Plymouth with 3 days' notice. People have got trains booked. People have got hotels booked. What on earth are you playing at? And the response we got was pretty much, if the television says we move it, we move it. We don't have any say in that. And that still is the same now as it has ever been. Those of us who go to games on a regular basis, and I still include myself in that, even though in many ways I shouldn't. But those who travel, they really don't give a fuck about you lads and lasses. They don't. They care about the money. Where's the money coming from? The money comes from the broadcasters. When the broadcasters say jump, they say how high. Mm-hmm. And then they turn around and go, oh, but these fans, but you've just jumped because they've said how high. And they don't care. And they never will, because that's ultimately where the money comes from. That supports them. The FA want their only competition these days, really, because let's take them away from the Premier League. Their only competition is the FA Cup. They want that to be the famous World FA Cup that everybody loves, that we all love because we have an affiliation from it, from winning it so many times in the 50s. They want to have that romance of the FA Cup to spread around the world and trade on. That's why they pick the kick-off times they do. It's not about fans. It's not about us. It's about them.
Sad but true. We've spoken about it many times. Just another one that we've got to mark down to experience. Okay, last couple of minutes. Toon Statos here.
Hello everyone. Man City at home tomorrow. It doesn't get more difficult than this. Here is some stats to support such a statement. Man City have scored against us in 30 consecutive games, which is the longest scoring streak one club in the Premier League has against another club. Also, Man City have most wins, 30, most clean sheets, 22, and most goals scored, 98, against Newcastle in the Premier League than against any other opposition. The good news is that Newcastle have only one win in the past 32 games in the Premier League, losing 26 and drawing 5. But that one win came also in January at home, back in 2019 under Rafa Benitez, when Matt Ritchie scored the winning goal from the penalty spot. When it comes to Man City star players, Phil Foden is involved in 7 goals in the past 10 games, scoring 4 and assisting 3. And he has also created the most chances from open play in the Premier League since Christmas. Also, Newcastle won once already against Man City at home in the Carabao Cup, beating them 1-0. The bad news is that Newcastle has not won 2 games against Man City in the same season in all competition since maybe Steve Wright's favorite season, 1983-1984. So, let's see what happens tomorrow, but it's high time that we break the voodoo against this guy. See you.
Okay, we did our review. I've gone for a 2-1 win. What are you going for, George?
1-0 win to us.
1-0 win. Steve?
I'm going 2-1. And interestingly, Steve, when you listen to those stats, that's over 16 years. It's not the 30 odd of the Premier League as well. Because remember,
Correct.
City were crap before that.
Correct. Mitch, what's the dice say?
Dice says, 2-0.
2-0. What do you say?
2-0. I'm going with the dice.
2-0. Okay, finish up with Elliot. See, Jules, I finish with a laugh. It's the birthday of the man who invented automatic tennis machines. Many happy returns to him.
Oh, God.
Hooray!
Hey, that's all from the
Yeah,
Amigos this
mate.
week. We're back live with the professionals on Sunday, around about 6 o'clock. Probably do an hour and a half as we did last week. But there is a show tomorrow. I am interviewing fans around the world. Mitch has kindly supplied me with another couple, so I will keep that little segment going. We've got the Minnesota Mags. We've got Tom on from them tomorrow morning. Great little interview. I recorded it. That's at 11 o'clock. Have a great weekend. Don't let the football spoil it. Take care, lads.
See you, lads.
Cheers, everyone.
See you.